Despite the two waves of coronavirus pandemic that wreaked havoc amongst most places, India has an 87% fintech adoption rate, which is far higher than the global average of 64%. Last year, India saw $2.7 billion in fintech investments. This was the second highest investment of close to $3.5 billion in 2019. This panel will discuss the milestones that we have crossed as a nation and as fintech community, as well as take a look at the opportunities and advancement that might shift global perspective towards Indian fintechs. This panel is moderated by Ms. Priti Gupta, founder of LXME, who is joined by Dr. Jasmine Gupta, National President, Financial Inclusion Council, Women's Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Hemant Tathod, Director, Customer Experience, Customer Service and Operations, Niyo Solutions Inc., and Mr. Sanjeev Kumar, Chief Executive Officer of Spice Money. Over to you, Priti. The session is all yours.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. And thank you, my co-panelists, for joining in. So the Financial Inclusion Index for India for this year, up to March 2021, stands at around 55%. This index is something that RBI has come up with. It's conceptualized and constructed as a comprehensive measure that incorporates details of banking, investment, insurance, postal, as well as pension sector. The index helps to assess and determine the extent of financial inclusion in India. It captures information on various aspects of financial inclusions, where on an index of 0 to 100, 0 is obviously least inclusion and 100 is most included. So when we look at this index at around 55%, my perspective is essentially around inclusion of women, where we see that 78 or 79% of women have bank accounts, but only less than 33% women take financial actions as in opening, looking at their money, investing their money, putting it into instruments that will grow their money. So LXME addresses that part of financial inclusion, and that's what I'm looking at. But I would love to hear from each of you, what does financial inclusion mean for you? And which part of that agenda are you addressing, and how are you doing it? So over to you, Jasmine, first.
Thank you so much, Priti. So financial inclusion as such is very close to my heart as a topic for multiple reasons. So I have a lot of connections with financial inclusion. I did my PhD in financial inclusion. I completed it in 2016. Post which, even professionally, I am very strongly involved with a lot of financial inclusion initiatives. At the same time, even from a volunteering side, I've been doing a lot of activities in terms of financial literacy and economically helping women through the Financial Inclusion Council of the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which I lead. So I think across all the spheres of my work life as well as my academic life, I've been deeply involved with financial inclusion. Now, as you rightly mentioned, RBI's Composite Financial Inclusion Index says it stands at 55-59%. If we compare it to the Global Fintechs Index, which was published by World Bank in 2017, India stood at 80% financial inclusion. Now, why this difference? Why is it that the World Bank 2017 record says that financial inclusion was 80%, and now the RBI record says it is 55%? So, of course, there is a different measure to which both the organizations have looked at how to measure financial inclusion, and the major impact which contributed to 80% of the World Bank index was because of the Jan Dhan mission mode impact, wherein we opened a lot of accounts and we covered almost 80% of the people of the country. However, the usage of these accounts remains very limited. So these accounts got opened, 1 year passed, there were some initial subsidies deposited in these accounts. The accounts were used once or twice and then they became inactive. And they've remained inactive. And that's one aspect why we see there is a difference in the RBI index. Because RBI index takes into consideration not just the excess of financial products and services, but also the usage of these products and services by the community, and also a third aspect which comes in the form of quality, in the form of the ease of using the services, in form of the experience, customer experience, and of course the last mile services that the people are able to enjoy. So I think that is a very composite index, and now that we have achieved 80% in terms of the numbers, I think the next step and the next mile of financial inclusion would be how do we make people financially included in the right spirit, rather than just having an account and calling them financially included. So that
access to all financial products
access
as well.
and usage
yeah.
is most critical.
Absolutely. Super. Hemant, over to you.
So financial inclusion for me is basically the access to the individuals and the businesses, which is easier, affordable, and in terms of the transaction, payments, savings, investments, and insurance products. As far as Niyo is concerned, we are trying to address a large gap which we found around 4 or 5 years back, which was around the blue-collar salaried segment. Now, this segment, what was happening there was the salaries were given in terms of the cash there. And there was some leakage happening because of the way the cash was managed, the middlemen involved and so on. So the actual salary received by these people, the blue-collar salaried segment, was lesser than what they actually deserved. So we found that gap and we worked on a solution called as Niyo Bharat, wherein we open instant salary accounts in less than 5 minutes. Employers are able to transfer these salaries into their salary accounts. So we kind of solve it the way it happens for a white collar job, right? And we have touched upon almost 2 million lives through this solution till date. Just to give some numbers, perspective in terms of the numbers we have, India has around 400 million salaried class in India. Around 280 million of those are in non-farm sectors, out of which you will be surprised to know only 45 million are the ones having EPFO membership or are part of the organized sector. So what we are essentially saying here is more than 80% of the employed population operating in non-organized sector having similar needs, financial needs as ours, like savings and investment products, insurance products. So there is a huge demand-supply gap which is unmet, and I'll talk about it as we go along.
Great. Super. Sanjeev.
Thanks, Priti. Great to be here. Financial inclusion, to me, at Spice Money, I think that it's a layered structure, and I see it in 3 layers, 3 parts. First part is what I call basic access. Second part is what I call basic induction to this financial ecosystem. And third, what I call is the adoption to different financial products and services. We at Spice Money, we want to solve all 3 of them. That's the journey that we are, and that's why we call ourselves a rural fintech. The first bit is why I think we've solved that to a large extent. I mean, the journey is still on. We are a network of 800,000 rural entrepreneurs whom we call Spice Money Adhikaris. And I can proudly say we built the largest ATM banking network in this country, spread across 18,500 pin codes. 90% of the rural pin codes is what we've covered. And we provide the basic access to basic banking. Right? Today, a consumer wants to withdraw money. He comes to our outlet and withdraws money right at the village level. Now we have transitioned to the second part of how can we induct them to the formal banking system, which is they have now an account, which means the number of accounts is still, well, Jandan, we've got 42 crore Jandan accounts open, but yes, a lot of them are dormant. There is still a need for account opening, and getting that account used is the second part, what I called basic induction. And third will be again the next set of journey on how can we get this customer segment to start using financial products. So this is what we are doing at Spice Money, Priti.
Great. So I think it's interesting that all of us here are looking at different market segments. And I think that leads me to my second question. So referring back to the same RBI report, which says that India's adoption rate of fintechs is about 60%, which is the second highest in the world. And I think events like demonetization, also the India stack, the infrastructure that is there, I think just the penetration and adoption of smartphones has led to this growth of, one fintech, and of course all the capital that's coming towards it, has led to the growth of fintechs as well as the penetration of fintechs. However, it's not been a very seamless journey. I think we've all individually been doing that journey in bits and pieces. So would love to hear from you, maybe Sanjeev, beginning with you, what has been your journey like? What were the successes? What were the pain points? And, tell us a little bit more about Spice Money. Why did you decide to start it? And what was, from then to now, how has the infrastructure ecosystem sort of helped you, and where have been the sort of, the struggle points?
Sure, great question, Priti. Absolutely. Infrastructure, I'll tell you, starts with basic connectivity. I mean, if we didn't have basic connectivity today at a village level, data being accessible at an affordable price, we couldn't have thought of what we are today. Okay, that's where it starts, according to me. Then the India stack of the digital payments system ecosystem being created by NPCI, obviously combined with the Aadhaar authentication and the identity piece because of Aadhaar today, this couldn't have been possible. Right? The basic business that we are in today couldn't have been possible, and I think that has been the basic pillar, the building blocks of reaching where we are. We started the journey about 4 years ago, and again, like I said, the fact that there is a need in rural India, there's a consumer who wants basic access to banking, and he was not able to get it. Today, we're leveraging technology, and that's what we've done. That's why I said starting with basic connectivity and then technology of the Indian stack, and this entrepreneurs were able to. So it's been a wonderful journey. And if I say this, if this wasn't there, we couldn't have achieved what we are. This got compounded in the COVID era, right? And we all felt the need for it and the benefits out of it. So it's worked. Yeah, there are challenges on the way. Rural India is not an easy market to be in. It has its own challenges of literacy, trust, brand, all of that. But yes, it's a journey. We're committed to it. It's an opportunity we believe is huge, and we want to walk that path, Priti. Over a period of time, I'm sure we'll be able to build that brand for rural India.
Great, thank you, Sanjeev. Sounds very interesting, and we are hoping to see your success journey as we go along. Hemant, a little bit more about your journey and
Sure. So I completely agree with what Sanjeev has said. We have leveraged extensively the infrastructure built by the NPCI, the India stack, such as eKYC. So I was mentioning about accounts being open in less than 5 minutes for a blue collar segment was possible because of these elements. And we also leveraged on the infrastructure of RuPay network. So we are one of the largest issuer of RuPay cards in India. So that is one thing. And this recent circular which has come from RBI, which talks about the interoperability requirements of PPI, we will be able to kind of build the UPI stack, which was not possible earlier on the prepaid accounts. And we all know that UPI is one of the most popular payment system for the small ticket transactions. So I think that will be something very, very useful. We will be able to kind of leverage on. As far as you were asking about the challenges. So one challenge which still remains is so what happens in this blue collar segment is as soon as they receive the salary, the first thing they do is rush to the ATMs, right, for cash withdrawals. Now, as we all know, the ATM cash withdrawal still remains a very, very high cost for all of us and for the consumer. So this is something which is a kind of unhappy scenario for this particular segment, and we are kind of wrapping our heads around to solve this problem.
Super, Hemant. I think where there's a challenge, there's an opportunity, right? So I think all of us are hearing, and
yes.
so are a lot of our audience. So thank you, Hemant, for that. Jasmine, from your perspective, you've, of course, the whole financial inclusion piece that you look at. So you've had actually a long time overview over what's happening in this space. Would love to understand how you've seen, say even the last 4 years, 5 years post demonetization, how has that sort of evolved from there to where we are now?
Okay. So I think in the last 5 years, of course, Jandan has played its part, post which demonetization played its part, though temporarily. It seems that COVID will play a more permanent role in, achieving and helping us achieve the financial inclusion that we are trying to achieve through the digital models. Having said that, I think all of these factors have, contributed to a large extent, but there's a lot of scope for more things to achieve. And I think the economy, the situation, the market is just right for a solution-based approach. Now, when we talk of financial inclusion, there are a lot of categories. Like he talked about blue-collared workers, there are factory workers, there are fishermen, there are farmers, there are women, there are millennials. There's a whole huge segment. And the financial needs of all the segments are very different. So it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach that is going to work for all of these segments. And hence, I think the future lies in figuring out the best possible financial solution that would apply for that particular ecosystem. Like, for example, let me give you an example of fishermen. Now, fishermen as a segment have very different needs in terms of finance. They have very different needs in terms of working capital, or even saving patterns are very different. So we need an ecosystem-based solution that can cater to this specific segment. Similarly, and when we talk of the various categories of segments, we also look at various categories of products. Now, insurance, for example. Now, insurance for factory workers or insurance for blue-collar workers is something which has been completely ignored. However, health insurance is critical for them. They also work in environment where they need to have the safety and the insurance needs. So, a solution which is focused on healthcare for a blue-collar segment or a factory workers segment, or a solution which is focused on farmers as a segment, helping them with finding out the right solutions in terms of finance, in terms of geo possibilities, informing them about weather conditions, what is the best way of monetizing their products. I think there's a huge scope. And having said that, whether we keep segments or products, I think there is a huge need for financial literacy. Because that is going to play a very important role in ensuring that people use these services. So there's no dearth of players in the market. Now, with Fintechs coming in, I think a lot of innovative use cases and solutions are coming out. However, there is a need for literacy, and I think banks and Fintechs will all have to join hands to ensure that people are literate enough to come forward and use the services that we offer to them.
Yeah, absolutely agree, Jasmine. I think and personally what I've seen is that over the last few years, the India Stack, UPI, this whole digitization, democratization of financial instruments, etc., has just allowed us to literally hyper-personalize an offering to a niche customer segment. And I think which is where Lakshmi also stepped in for women, and to your point, very, dedicated behavioral as well as, sort of behavioral usage towards everything that it's no longer that one size fits all. So totally agree to that. In fact, I was talking to a leading bank which caters to women in another emerging country. And I think when speaking to that team, and they said, look, for us, KYC is still physical verification, right? And I think it made me really think that thankfully we have that platform where our ability, the speed with which we can really do this KYC, the ease with which we can do it is fantastic. And then coming, Jasmine, to your point where you said that all of these tools are there, but I think, for example, we saw 400 million plus accounts on the Jan Dhan Yojana, etc. So that whole trilogy of, the Jan Manthan, that was just something that I think has really helped us. However, the percolation or penetration of these products itself. I'm not even talking of the larger, say the secondary capital market instruments, etc. But even these basic, tools that or the products that the government has, the penetration of that has obviously has been very, very poor. And I think that is where I think fintechs can play a very, very important role. So would love your thoughts on that. Jasmine, you've shared some already, but would love for you to just add on to maybe what Hemant and Sanjeev have to say to that. Because I know that when I talk to women, they are not even aware. For example, women are one of the most insured when it comes to health insurance and need it most. But they're not even aware that even at a very basic cost, they can access this, right? So we're not even talking of the complicated or the more sort of sophisticated products. So Hemant, Sanjeev, would love to hear from you.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I completely agree, Priti, because I think it is perceived to be the domain of men in the family. To lead, but I think the initiative which you are driving through Lakshmi, I really liked it when I was reading about it, wherein we would want more and more women to lead these, so-called financial decisions within the family. Yeah, and it's lead. It's not participation or it's not listening. We are talking about. So for me, the digital literacy and again I'll stick to my use case. What we are trying to solve for is the digital literacy. According to me, means the ability of a person to understand, analyze, the manage, and then communicate the personal financial matters, right? And that is the most difficult part of it, specifically in this segment. Now, a government has done, as we all know, a lot of initiatives which are around Vittiya Saksharta Abhiyan, then Digital Saksharta Abhiyan, in short called as Disha, right? What is happening there is, and they are implementing it very beautifully via the common service centers. So we have around, I think, 400,000 centers, training centers across India. 53 million people have enrolled in these programs, and they are targeted towards the rural citizens of India, right? And 35 million people have already kind of completed the certificates. So that's the kind of numbers we are looking at. Having said that, you will be surprised to know India is home to 12% of world's unbanked population, right? So we are second to China here. And so how do we kind of bridge this gap? So we can have something like the solutions could be around special purpose vehicles with the public-private partnership, wherein fintech players like us, Spice, Niyo, we can kind of leverage our current distribution network because we are reaching out day in and day out to this particular segment, right? And by leveraging our network, we can kind of increase the awareness for this segment. So that's my thought.
I'd like to add to that, Priti. So I think very nice point he has touched upon. So collaboration. When we talk of fintechs coming forward, and we have also witnessed a lot of use cases wherein banks and fintechs collaborate and offer the best solutions, unique, innovative solutions in the market that would not have thought of. And the reason why banks would like to partner with fintechs is because, of course, the speed, the agility with which the fintechs can bring out products and go to market is much faster. And it's a win-win for both, to partner and create unique solutions. And coming to the use case of Lakshmi, I was, it's of course very interesting. At the same time, we've seen, even from our microfinance experience, that women are the best customers. They are the most loyal customers. They pay their EMIs in time. And that's been a very successful business model that's been running since many years. And because we have a model which is very successful, which is very women-focused, I think it makes a lot of sense that we can build on that model. So there can be a lot of different solutions that can be built on. But yes, micro insurance, micro savings, micro credit, micro gold-based deposits. There are a lot of options that can be built on that microfinance layer. There are a lot of options that we can build on the Lakshmi, the portal that you're building. And I think it can be wonderful for women as an experience as well. And of course, to make them digitally and financially. Good points. I just thought I'll add.
No, thank you, Jasmine. And Sanjeev, over to you.
So, I look at it in a broader perspective here. Is that the government has definitely done a lot of programs and will continue to do. But it's what's happened in the last few years. I think because of technology, today even players like us and fintechs, and they should. I think many organizations need to play a role in this whole financial literacy and onboarding of people onto the financial ecosystem. And I think we're all doing that. It's going to be a journey. But what gives me a lot of hope again is that what was not possible a few years ago is becoming possible today. And hence, I feel that financial inclusion as a subject has been, while it's been there for a long time, there's a lot of action that I see happening now. And that's primarily because of what I call leveraging technology and players like, let's say the fintech players like even us, who, because we run a very asset-light model, we can think of doing it. I'll just give you a very small example that we've done, which is not related to fintech, but then it's just, so when even this whole COVID vaccination program that got launched, and you had to register, right? You had to register people for vaccination. Now, how does a rural consumer who's not digitally savvy to register? So what we did is we launched this program with all our adhikaris and encouraged them to register their rural citizens across in the community, and they did a splendid job at it.
Wonderful.
So I'm just giving you examples that, this is just an example, and this gives me hope of how the networks are playing a role today on, onboarding people onto this financial and digital literacy. So I think I see a lot of hope going forward in this.
Very interesting, Sanjeev.
Yeah, that's amazing work, Sanjeev. I think, a lot of people say fintechs are platforms, and I think hearing you, I would love to say that there is a lot of empathy that's also getting built into it. And just taking a cue from what I think you and Jasmine and Hemant said, I think there are two, at least when we in India speak about, reaching out to the consumer, there are two Indias, right? There is India and there is Bharat, which is always spoken about. And Bharat essentially, especially for our audience, which is if not from India, is that next 500 million or 1 billion that we are talking about, the mass which has not really got, where financial, the sort of the India received whatever they had access to in terms of financial services, products. Bharat obviously didn't because of the lack of penetration, right? And I think that's where fintechs come in and play a very important role in reaching out. And these times are very interesting. So we're seeing, you have banks, and then you have the account aggregators, and you have fintechs, and the need and want to sort of collaborate and build on each other's strengths or or platforms. I think that's what we are watching, which is very interesting over the last, I think, couple of years. It's just been very, very actively being worked on. And for, I think, people who are in this ecosystem, I would love for, I would want you to share, what does the future look like? What do the next 2-3 years look like? Given that now, banking is not a very strictly held together saying, no, we will not. I think open banking APIs, for example, are helping fintechs like us to build their platform, use those APIs, and, help take it to the, end customer. Jasmine, what do you think the next 2 years will look like for India and the fintech landscape?
I think the journey has already started, and maybe in the next 2-3 years, we'll see a lot of banks and fintechs collaborating and coming out with a lot of solutions that would be end customer focused, and ultimately the winner will be the customer, because then the customer will have a lot of options to choose from. Having said that, there are a lot of cross learnings that happen. And the banks have also started learning a lot from fintechs, how fintechs work, how fast they work, how are they doing it, how are they reaching to the last mile. And we've also seen, a concept of fintechs within the banks taking shape. So most of the banks have started this journey wherein they are creating their own fintechs within the entire setup. And that fintech competes with not just the fintechs of the country, but also the bank itself. It competes with the main bank itself. And that is also a model that some banks are, trying it out. And I think going forward with maybe a digital bank license coming in, the competition is also going to be very intense. With a lot of fintechs having the opportunity to, getting converted into digital banks, a lot of banks creating fintechs out of their own, separate licenses, and many hybrid models coming and competing. Ultimately, I think all of these initiatives, all of these even regulatory changes are all to ensure that the customer is finally getting the benefit. And if we have to reach the last mile in the truest sense, wherein we want to ensure that the end customer is completely financially included, then I think this entire journey that has taken off should take a concrete shape in next 2-3 years, and the competition should get intense, and I think we all benefit out of it. This is my take.
Great. Amazing. Hemant, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, sure. So I think, yes, open banking is definitely disrupting the things. Earlier, the banking was very, very broad-based. But now fintechs are helping to kind of create micro segments within the customer segments. And that is also thanks to a lot of data analytics which has come into the play now. So as per the Accenture report, there are around 66.6 billion transactions that happen today, worth $270 billion in cash, and which are potentially will get converted into cards or digital payments thanks to open banking. So my belief is that open banking is going to play a very, very pivotal role for the growth in this growth trajectory, including the through the financial inclusion and innovations. So that's my take.
Super. Sanjeev?
So, no, I think we are all on the same page. I'm very clear that collaboration is the key. The future is all about collaboration. So it is not the earlier days where, I know it all, I own it all. That is not the future, and that is not going to sustain. And I think, at least I'm already experiencing it with a lot of organizations, not here naming anybody, large organizations who've changed the stand that they didn't have a few years ago.
Yeah.
They're very, very open, forward-looking now, because they know it's not, saying that, this is my domain, this is my place, this is my area. That's not the world. It's not a closed user group world now. It's very open. Even your entire architecture, not only open banking, even the technology architecture, platform architecture is all open. You can, come, access it, anybody access it, should be able to utilize the services. So, in my view, Priti, it's collaboration is the key, and I think a lot of organizations are already adapting to it. So that's how we'll see the future.
Fantastic. I think the future looks very exciting when it comes to fintechs and financial inclusion, fintechs enabling financial inclusion. And I think the dream really is for every citizen of the country to be able to have at least equal access and literacy, awareness, all of that around all financial products, right? I think we've spoken a lot about the ecosystem and the journey and all of that. But regulatory ease of business, everything that we have, incubation, accelerators, lots happening. But just one thing, very quickly, one thing on your wish list. Because I think we also have in the audience people who are listening. So Sanjeev, beginning with you, one thing on your wish list.
Actually, that quite a lot, Priti, but if I were to just pick up, I think the world is changing so fast, and it's such an you have to be agile as an organization, and there's technology at the back end. You need the policies and the framework to stay on, right? For example, and it's important because you move the organization in that direction. So it's very important that the policies, regulations are conducive enough and they stay the way it is. I think that is what I would want as one of my top list in this.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Hemant?
So for me, the wish is internally we keep discussing about it. Only 2 words: digital licenses from the regulator and the ecosystem is what I think will change the game.
I think they heard you. So I was just reading about it. So yeah, that's a very exciting development. I think it just opens up a lot of avenues for a lot of fintechs now. Jasmine.
Apart from that digital business bank license, of course, I think clarity in policies. See, most of the times what happens is, because of a lack of regulation, people and especially fintechs, because they are unregulated, they come up with a lot of new solutions, they experiment, they do it, and then it comes to a point wherein the regulator takes notice, and all the regulations that follow is a post-mortem mostly. So I think there can be a way wherein, of course, RBI has the sandbox and the incubator, but I think that entire way of working can be streamlined in such a way that instead of a post-mortem regulation, it's always the initiative comes through the regulator and then it defines the industry. That works best, I think.
Great. I think so. In this session, what we've obviously covered is that I think the government, the infrastructure, the tools that are available to fintechs, I think we've got an edge when it comes to that. I think our UPI is something that is spoken world over. I think our entrepreneurial spirit and the ability for us to the number of fintechs and the different areas and sectors which many of them are actually functioning in, I think is going to be a game changer for us as a country. I think just all of the spirit of collaboration that is coming about is only going to accelerate that journey. I think what we are looking for is now just consistent policies around it. I think the view to making sure that fintechs collaborating with a lot of private-public partnerships, as well as within fintechs, working together to ensuring that as a country we are very, very actively accelerating towards financial inclusion is where we are. And it's been a pleasure discussing this. This discussion can go on a lot longer, but maybe we will take it off stage. But for now, this is it. And thank you so much, Sanjeev, Hemant, Jasmine, for being on this panel and just adding to the thoughts that we've been building around. It's been a pleasure, and Amit, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Priti. And a big thanks to all our panelists as well, Dr. Jasmine, Hemant and Sanjeev as well.
5 मिनट में अकाउंट सेटअप और ट्रेडिंग शुरू।
हाँ कर सकते हैं।
नहीं कर सकते।
लगी शर्त और हारा तो It's possible with CoinSwitch Kuber. Download करो और Bitcoin trading start करो. CoinSwitch Kuber. सिक्का चमकेगा.
Cryptocurrency is an unregulated digital asset, not a legal tender and subject to market risks and price.
Where there is life, there is hope, there is meaning. But life has its downs as much as its ups. Life is about challenges. Life is about opportunities. Time for joy, time for celebration, and time to introspect. Thankfully, in every one of life's moments, and even beyond life itself, there's LIC. Where there is life, there's always LIC. Zindagi ke saath bhi, zindagi ke baad bhi.
Welcome to Fego, a pioneer in the world of intelligent open finance. With our full stack open finance platform, we enable companies to understand their users' financial behavior across various use cases, making finance engaging and actionable. Fago's developer-friendly product stack helps clients with friction-free user onboarding and authentication using trusted account information. Connect and aggregate your users' banking transaction data from any source, either any of the account aggregators or directly from any core banking solution at flexible intervals. Enrich and categorize transaction data using machine learning algorithms to extract deep behavioral attributes of your users. Understand and act on real-time insights powered by your users' behavior for a variety of use cases ranging from lending, wealth, income verification, frauds, to even branding and marketing insights. Engage with your users by embedding our personal finance management SDK in your existing user-facing app to push positive financial habits and personalize financial insights to your users. If you are looking to engage or understand your user base's financial behavior to take informed decisions, Fago is your perfect partner. With the complete Fago suite, you can now capture what drives your users at every stage of their journey and use it to drive your growth. Plug into Fago and let us do the heavy lifting for you.